Good morning, USA, and welcome to another episode of the Bernie or Bust Show. We've got a great lineup today. We've got two of the best commentators on the left on the same show. Tim Black is being interviewed on Rising, and he is calling out Ellen DeGeneres. And so if you've watched previous episodes or read any of my articles on Medium, you know that I have documented that there is a group of people in Hollywood who work together. It's a conspiracy. It's not a theory. And so this is more fuel for the fire. Let's start with the question of Elizabeth Warren and whether she's different from Bernie. We're going to go farther and say that is Elizabeth Warren different from Hillary Clinton? And that's probably an even more fruitful search. But here we go with Rising, The Hill. And this is Crystal Ball and Sagar and Jetty interviewing Tim Black.
Are you allowed to say that they're different? What's your view on all of this?
I don't care if you're allowed to say it or not. They are different.
Yeah.
At the core of it, I've seen you guys. You talk about it. Elizabeth Warren's policies are very similar to Bernie's, but what makes people vote for people?
Yeah.
Belief that they're actually going to carry out what they say they're going to do.
Right.
Consistency matters. She just got caught again. Right. Unforced error.
Yeah.
How do you make you look bad? Like, how do you make yourself look like a liar? By changing your own story about a situation that you interjected on your own stump speech. She pulled a Joe Biden on herself with this whole, I got kicked out of the job because I was pregnant thing. And we know discrimination occurs, but you're the one who contradicted you.
Right.
So,
this was an instance of blatant lying on Elizabeth Warren's part, because they show clips from the past where she said that she decided not to come back for a second year. They even show that she was offered a position, and so it's really awful that she said that they denied her to come back. She was pregnant, yes. She decided not to come back. They've clearly shown that she decided not to come back. So what she's saying lately, that she was denied a position because she was pregnant, a teaching position in public school, is just a blatant lie.
It just feeds into the narrative that, Elizabeth Warren is someone that you can't trust, and she's going to...
And that's what I talked about here. I mean, look, this woman bought $10 million in ads against corruption, and she can't denounce Hunter Biden's seat on the Ukrainian energy company.
And she wanted to.
That's another episode of the Bernie or Bust Show where we talked about Nancy Pelosi's son and Joe Biden's son being in the Ukraine working for energy companies. Blatant conflict of interest, blatant corruption. And so they're trying to impeach Trump, not for all the things they should be trying to impeach him for, but for shining a light on their own children's corruption and on their corruption. Nancy Pelosi was implicated also as connected to these energy companies.
Reconcile that.
Brother, she wanted to denounce it. You can see it in her. She started off denouncing it oh no, did she remember? Hold on, that's Joe Biden.
Right.
This looks bad to the team.
Right.
Let me get back on script. So.
And who writes this script? And that's where, if you followed the show for a while, you see that the script is being written by, not so sure where the beginning of the script comes, but then as it is carried out, it's carried out by the talent agencies in Hollywood. And it's not difficult to figure out that all these thought leaders work for the same talent agents, whether the thought leaders are comedians, whether they're talk show hosts, whether they are news commentators, whether they're athletes or movie actors, they all work for the same people. It's not difficult to connect the dots and see why they all endorsed Hillary Clinton and why they're all, mark my words, you heard it here first, all of the same people. Spike Lee, for example, already has swung over. All the same people are going to swing over for Elizabeth Warren, who originally supported Hillary. That doesn't make sense on the face of it. To really understand that, you'd have to understand the connection, this horrible spider web of deceit and treachery in this Hollywood cabal.
I don't get it.
Yeah, it's interesting.
I don't
so
get it.
what would you want to see Senator Sanders do on the debate stage next week? What do you
I agree. I want him to be more aggressive, but I just think that I always feel that there's something more to why someone I'm not in the planning stages. I'm not in the campaign. I don't know, but I gotta imagine that there's something they're saying we need to hold back for. It's a reason, maybe unfavorability ratings. But when we say, look, Bernie's got the most donors, bar none. He's got the most contributors, small dollar donations. I believe he's the front runner if you want to actually count balls and strikes. I don't know what they count, RBIs, or we count yards, games, first downs. Okay,
I get it. I know what you're saying.
So in reality, now I know who they're polling. Yeah. But I don't see a lot of Joe Biden stickers. Yeah. I've never seen an Amy Klobuchar bumper sticker. You feel what I'm saying?
I hear you. Absolutely. So I know that you weighed in on something else that has the internet afire. Ellen DeGeneres took a video in which she appeared with George W. Bush. She apologized. Well, she explained for it in her show yesterday. Let's take a listen to that. We're going to get Tim's take on this before he goes.
Here's the thing. I'm friends with George Bush. In fact, I'm friends with a lot of people who don't share the same beliefs that I have.
And they all have the same talent agent, except George W. Bush.
We're all different, and I think that we've forgotten that that's okay that we're all different. But just because I don't agree with someone on everything doesn't mean that I'm not going to be friends with them. When I say be kind to one another, I don't mean only the people that think the same way that you do. I mean be kind to everyone.
But if they're connected to this money machine, the DNC and the Hillary Clinton machine, and actors and thought leaders aren't the only people. You've got some billionaires too, and George W. Bush is connected to oil, big oil. Everyone knows that. So you're all on this team. I have to be kind. What you're really saying is I have to be kind to everyone who's in this big club.
So, Tim, she made the comparison explicitly between being friends with George W. Bush, who in my view is a war criminal, and being friends with people who wear fur, which she also doesn't agree with. Those are roughly the same.
They are the same, though. That's what you're missing, guys. You're missing the idea that they all are connected via the Clinton machinery.
Things, right?
Right. Yeah, they're exactly the same thing, Johnson. I think, look, I don't know where she's going with this, but I told people in the tweet, I think
you had a great tweet.
Look, man, come on. Ellen DeGeneres is no longer just an LGBTQ activist. I mean, she was standing up for the people. At this point, she's just a rich person. Right. And she's part of that team that George...
Same with Whoopi Goldberg. She used to stand for things, and now she's just on this team. But I keep posting my videos under Tim Black's feed, and I'm a subscriber to Tim Black. Tim Black and Crystal Ball, I think, are the two best commentators going right now. And I'm not leaving out Jimmy Dore or Lee Camp or others. They're also awesome. David Dole, all the lists that I've shown you on this show. But they don't seem... Oh, I'll tell you one person, though, who has jumped on this is Graham Elwood. Has jumped on this idea that they're all connected via Hollywood. But it explains so much, and I just keep hoping that somebody's going to pick it up. I don't live that far away from Tim Black or from Crystal Ball and Sagar, so I'm hoping that I could talk about this too with them.
Colin described that we're not a part of.
It's a big club.
It's a big club, and we ain't in it, Johnson. But she's there, so excuse George W. Bush. I mean, he may be a nice guy, but he's also a murderer, and that's the way I see it.
That's what I was talking about with Crystal, which is like, it's like this is what happens when you're worth like $400 million. And I love that story too, right? Like, oh well, Jerry Jones's daughter invited me, so we flew down on our private jet.
Jerry Jones, these are strange bedfellows, but they all agree on a few things, enough to keep them working for the team.
Dad, and there's all... So I'm like, that's the gross part. Not just the Georgia... I mean, it's like all just this like concentration, conglomeration of all these people who disagree with each other in public. They don't disagree. Right. They're all part of the same club.
That's the point. They're all part of the same club.
The lie of civility, right? That civility trumps everything as long as...
It's not civility. You just keep missing it. All of you are missing it. It isn't civility. It's money. It's influence. It's power. It's a club. You're close. It's a big club, and you ain't in it. But you just keep missing the real connection.
You're nice to each other. Who cares who's getting screwed? Because it's not affecting them.
If we don't have the principles, like if you don't have something that you'll ride and die for, what are you really doing? So with Ellen and with a lot of other people, look, I like Hollywood. I like actors. I like actresses. They great people. Great, do your thing. But maybe sometimes we need to fall back and let the activists actually be the activists. Let the politicians be the politicians.
Right.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
Celebrities who support Hillary Clinton. Slide number 5. Ellen DeGeneres. You know what a supporter I am, DeGeneres told Clinton during a visit to the comedian's talk show earlier this year. I think that you're as smart as can be. We've talked about that. Competent. I think you are qualified. She has a good resume. I think you stand for everything that I want in a president. We called George W. Bush a war criminal and a murderer. I don't think Hillary Clinton is substantially different in that way. Let's look at slide number 7 here. Samuel L. Jackson. This is as disturbing as Spike Lee. And for the same reason. The actor has expressed approval of Clinton rival Bernie Sanders, but in the end, after his talent agency got a hold of him, he chose to endorse the former Secretary of State, explaining, I love Bernie. Bernie's a man of the people, but he can't win. Samuel L. Jackson. That's horribly painful. Let's jump to slide 12 here. Miley Cyrus was originally feeling the burn. What happened to these people? Why would they just decide to go for somebody real to somebody fake? And not only fake, but evil. After Bernie Sanders lost the Democratic primary, she became a vocal Clinton supporter. She even knocked on dorm room doors at George Mason University to campaign for the Democratic nominee. I wonder, it just doesn't make sense on the face of it why somebody who was active for Bernie would suddenly do something like that. Adele said during a Miami concert that she's 100% for Hillary Clinton. And it just happens that Clinton was in the audience during the show. But it's unclear if Adele was aware. Unclear. Olivia Wilde. In an interview with the Daily Beast, the actress said she likes both Clinton and progressive Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren. My dream is that Warren would be Hillary's VP, but that's not happening in a million years. Well, that's because Clinton and Warren made a deal behind the scenes, and we've documented this. Watch Kyle Kulinski. There's a previous episode of the Bernie or Bust show where I linked to the episode of Kyle Kulinski saying that we know this for a fact, that Hillary made a deal with Warren to stay out and then to come in again, and that's the connection to the CAA talent agency, and the money Michael Kives donated to Elizabeth Warren to have her come into the race. And not only Elizabeth, but Joe Biden, Cory Booker, and Kamala Harris all received money from the CAA talent agency to run against Bernie. So Olivia is the only reason I included Olivia is because she likes both. And I think that's the next trend that you're going to see is these thought leaders all swinging over behind Elizabeth. And then the last one here, Steven Spielberg. And he's an example of not just a foot soldier. He's an example of the movers and shakers who are pulling the puppet strings up higher. And that's why I included him. But they're all connected. Degeneres, I had to dig. It's not as easy now as it used to be to see who the talent agencies are that these celebrities are represented by. But I found an old article, 97, that said Ellen did in fact move to CAA. I'm pretty sure she's still there, but if somebody finds out that she's left CAA, I'd be appreciative if you would tell me. I'd be also surprised, because it seems like a number of them are like, or they're either CAA or UTA. Those are the two main ones. I had Trevor Noah on my show. I had him on my show. I featured a clip of him on my show a couple of days ago, 3 days ago, I think, where I commended him for having anti-plutocrat guest on his show and giving him the chance to make his case. But then I was told by others that he has anti-Semitism tweets, and that he also made fun of Bernie Sanders in a clip I showed you yesterday. And I couldn't find out right away that he also is on the CAA speakers list, like Spike Lee is, and like others who have switched sides. Some people that just naturally would seem, not Trevor, of course, but others who would just naturally seem like Bernie supporters, who would just, and have actually said, I'm a Bernie supporter, switching sides. And every case I've looked, I've found that they were either CAA represented or UTA represented. And so this is an article by Eric Blair that I've linked to in the past. I just want to show you the headline again to show you what's going on. Warren is in as the establishment's darling. And so that's the overall point. I want to just, and I'll link to this so you can read it. Why Elizabeth Warren can't be trusted on Medicare for all. And we talked about Elizabeth's daughter and the connection. And her daughter also works in Los Angeles and also is an agency exec, but not for actors and actresses, but more for business talent. But there's this pattern here. And if you've watched previous Bernie or Bust shows, you know why Elizabeth will not ever be an enemy of health insurance companies. Bernie's unmatched plan to rip Democrats away from corporate influence is, I'm going to link to this so you can watch this. This is excellent. And then the fact that Bernie welcomes the hatred of this cabal that I keep referencing. And the more I talk about it and the more I look into it, the more I dig down, I see these connections. And you will too. It isn't a theory. It's a conspiracy. And then what is neoliberalism? Yesterday I talked about why I think higher education has gone down the toilet because the bean counter mentality has taken over. Just want to end with this idea. This clip is only 3 minutes, but I'm going to show you a really short part of it that explains why education, as George Carlin says, education sucks and why it's never, ever going to change. If George can hear this clip, if he can see it, I would be so happy if he could beam down his approval.
Let's take the American public education system as an example of how business interests have infiltrated public systems. In the past, public schools were set up to offer a free education to promote the liberal humanist ideas of liberty and equality. But with the rise of neoliberalism and in turn education reform movements, the lines between public and private education have been blurred. What we now see is heavy private investment from private individuals and corporations. In the name of liberty, neoliberals use the business-laden language of choice, free market, and deregulation to dismantle and then reconstruct public schools in a corporate image. This all happens through the use of language that sounds lovely and freeing, but ultimately doesn't
choice, accountability, freedom, standards-based, results-driven. I've been hearing this bullshit for more than a few years, but it finally caught up to us.
Too many questions from the general public. As corporations take a stronghold in the public sector, we also see the reciprocal investment of public school dollars into private companies.
And as she said, we don't question this. We've just been taught to nod our heads and agree. And the privatization of education is just one part, one tentacle of the evil octopus.
Not familiar with the education system? That's okay. You don't have to look far to see neoliberalism at work.
And then it goes on. This is an excellent clip because it's short and powerful. It just makes the case in point by point. And so if you're trying to get your friends to understand. There are a number of good clips on neoliberalism. Another one in my feed follows it. Oh, now it's out of order. But there are a number of good clips on neoliberalism, and if you're watching the show, you'll see them. I'll link to them over time. I have linked to them in the past so that you have a really succinct definition, because everyone's talking about neoliberalism, but not everyone knows what it is. So that I'll leave you with that. And so the connection to Hollywood, neoliberalism is being touted by the same people, and it's not a big group of people, but they have so much power and so much influence that when they're flying in their corporate jets, when they're going to watch, sit in Jerry Jones' box and watch a Cowboys game or whatever they're doing, you can bet that they're all on the same page, and that's what a conspiracy is, and we're being ruined by it. We have been over 50 to 70 years, depending on who you're talking to. And we need Bernie, and we need to not only Bernie, but we need to stand behind Bernie and elect other officials who will help. And we need to also just stand up on our own and wave the flag of freedom, and wave the torches, and wave the pitchforks if we need to get this all to happen. We have been simmering in the pot for far too long, and we need to jump out. So keep that going, keep the fires burning, keep on burning, and hopefully I'll see you tomorrow.